Y'all, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Taya and this is Taya's Turning Pages. So as you can see by the title of today's video, we are going to discuss all things star-crossed lovers and ill-fated and just doomed to end in tragedy. This is actually one of my favorite tropes in media. I understand how devastating the trope is and heart-wrenching it is, but for some reason, it's one of my favorite tropes. Titanic is one of my favorite movies of all time. I do rewatch the Romeo and Juliet movie whenever I can. Like I said, this is one of those tropes that I've always been interested in and just always gravitated towards. And I'm just gonna give you guys a standard definition of what star-crossed means. And so right here, according to dictionary.com, it says star-crossed lovers refers to any lovers whose affection for each other is doomed to end in tragedy. And so I do feel like that is a great definition, of course. I have seen other definitions here in my results that says star-crossed or star-crossed lovers is when two people are just not able to be together for some type of reason or circumstances beyond their control. To be honest, I feel like a few of the books here do skew more towards that definition than the doomed to end in tragedy definition, but I feel like I do have a good mix, so you guys are gonna get, you know, some variety here, okay? But I did just want to state the definition either way. And before we jump in, as you can see here, I have my star-crossed merch on. Shout out to Casey Musgraves. This is a Casey Musgraves household, so I just felt like this is the most appropriate and fitting t-shirt to wear for this video. But I do have quite a few books to get through, so let's get started. So the first book that I have here, I feel like needs no introduction, and I have talked about it quite a bit on my channel. And of course, it is one of those books that is just so popular within the book community for a good reason. But the book that I'm referring to is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. So you guys already knew, if you've been following my channel for a while, that I was going to have to include this masterpiece of a book in this video because Patroclus and Achilles really are the epitome of star-crossed lovers. So this is a Greek mythology retelling, and it is a retelling of Achilles, but this story does more specifically follow Achilles and another character named Patroclus. And so starting with Patroclus, Patroclus is more of a standoffish, broody, reserved type of character, and unfortunately, due to an incident, Patroclus is actually banished and exiled from his home very early on in his life. And so he ends up making this journey to this area where Achilles lives, and Achilles is known as the golden boy. He is the sunshine of the story, and he's just so charismatic. And so like I said, Patroclus ends up making his way to where Achilles lives, and long story short, Patroclus ends up becoming Achilles' right-hand man. They end up forming a very tight-knit and close friendship that slowly starts to morph into a deeper connection, i.e. a romance. But while all of this is going on, and while Achilles and Patroclus are trying to really figure out their feelings for one another, and also just dealing with their own personal things going on in their lives, there is an impending war that both Achilles and Patroclus have to partake in, and the story takes off from there. I'm not going to say anything else because I do feel like this is just one of those books that you should just pick up and read, but I will say that this book is as star-crossed lovers as you can get. The love between these two was just so adorable and so charming and heartwarming and just heartfelt. Every single time we got a snippet of their relationship and their bond growing deeper and more intimate, I screamed. I just feel like Madeline Miller does such a great job with the historical and Greek mythology elements, but she also does a fantastic job at painting a romantic picture of Achilles and Patroclus. These were two very passionate characters when it came to the other, and you could feel it throughout the pages. And I also just really love the fact that while yes, this is devastating and emotional in every sense of the word, I just feel like the story was beautifully tragic. And I really think that's what makes the star-crossed lovers trope so endearing to me and just so interesting to me, is because it is beautifully tragic and you can see art within that. I just think that this is a great book that falls into that category. So yeah, if you haven't already, I definitely recommend picking up The Song of Achilles. Madeline Miller's prose and writing is stunning. Both Achilles and Patroclus are so compelling, and like I said, you can really feel their love for one another throughout the pages, especially when you get towards the end. There are so many different quotes and so many different pieces of dialogue that just speak so much to their relationship, and it was beautiful. My favorite quote from this book is, "We were like gods at the dawning of the world, and our joy was so bright we could see nothing else but the other." If that right there doesn't speak to your soul or pull on your heartstrings, then I don't know what will. Just pick up The Song of Achilles if you haven't already. It's hyped up for a good reason in the book community. The next book that I have here is another one that probably needs no introduction because it's been featured on my channel so much, but it is You Reach Sam by Dustin Tapp. This is another book that has altered my brain chemistry and has changed me as a person. And I read this book a while ago. I want to say maybe 2 years ago, maybe at this point. and it still has stuck with me ever since then. I still think about this story and Julie and Sam. The story does follow our two characters, Julie and Sam. Julie and Sam are both high school seniors who are madly in love and are really looking forward to the next phase of their lives. So they're obviously planning to apply to college and to hopefully get an apartment together, the whole nine. But unfortunately, Sam dies unexpectedly and tragically. So Julie is left to pick up the pieces essentially and tries to move forward with her life as best as she can. But of course, she does miss Sam terribly. And so she decides to call his phone one day just to hear his voice on his voicemail. Instead of getting Sam's voicemail, Sam actually picks up. And so now Julie and Sam are in this weird spot of not being able to move on because they obviously figured out this weird loophole in the system where they can talk to each other whenever Julie calls him, and the story takes off from there. So I don't want to give anything else away because I'm sure, as you can tell by that synopsis, there's really only one way that this can end, and it's clearly not good because a situation like this is not sustainable for either Julie or Sam. But this book really did a number on me. I cried like a baby after I finished it because of just how raw and real this was. I think Dustin Tao's exploration on grief and what it really means to move on essentially in your life when you lose someone that you love in such a tragic and abrupt way was brilliant. And similar to the Song of Achilles, this is as star-crossed as you can get, especially because Sam is already deceased. And so to know that these two are ill-fated and can truly never be again really broke my heart, and was also reiterated, I feel like, throughout the story so many times, especially during the parts where Julie would kind of detach from the world around her and race home to call Sam and to talk to him. Oh my goodness, my heart broke into pieces because you could tell that this girl just wanted to be with Sam and Sam just wanted to be with her. And I love the little snippets and moments that we got when we were able to go back in the past and see Julie and Sam's relationship and how it came to be. As you could tell by me getting emotional just thinking about this book and explaining it to you guys, this is such an emotional read, but it is so beautiful and so poignant. I can't say enough great things about You Reach Sam. Just feel like if you are into the star-crossed lovers trope as much as I am, this is a book that you need to have in your library because it's gonna do it for you. And the last two books that I have here might be considered reaches, like I'm talking really reaching for the stars here, but they both have romantic subplots that technically fall into this trope. So I still wanted to share them, but I will say that the main gist of both of these stories is not romance. They just have a romantic subplot. Stay with me, we'll get into it. The first book that I feel like is a little bit more closer to this trope, I guess, than maybe the other one is Luck of the Titanic by Stacey Lee. So I am really happy that I'm able to talk about this book again and to talk about it with more of you, because this is a book that I actually read and reviewed in my early days of Booktube and Bookstagram. Most of y'all were not here, not outside with me when I read this book and talked about it on my channel. And that's totally fine because I'm happy that you guys are here now and that I can finally talk about this book and promote it to more people. I don't understand why this book has not been getting praised more. This is a fantastic historical fiction novel, but like I said, it has a romantic subplot in here that I adore. The story follows our character Valora Luck, which I just think is an appropriate and fitting name for this book. But Valora is a young Chinese woman living in England, and she does have a twin brother named Jamie, and her and her brother are very close, but Jamie has to travel a lot in order to make money and provide for his family. And Valora has always wanted more out of life, so that actually plays in part with Valora and Jamie's talent, because both Valora and Jamie are skilled acrobats, and so they are really good at trapezing, they're really good at walking the tightrope, they can do a lot of flips and tricks and juggle, the whole nine. And so Valora really wants to try to like capitalize off of that talent, and so she wants to go to America, that way she can put her talents on display, and she wants Jamie with her. And so she ends up getting news that the Titanic is set to sail from England to America, and so Valora feels like this is the perfect opportunity to showcase her talents and to finally get out of England once and for all. And so she decides to smuggle herself onto the Titanic, and when she finally gets on the Titanic, she does run into a lot of different characters along the way that do become an integral part of the story, including her love interest. And so there is a little bit of a blossoming romance between her and someone else on the ship, but before Valora can act on this, and before she can even find the owner of the Ringling Brothers to showcase her and Jamie's talents, the Titanic is hit by an iceberg. And so now Valora and the rest of the passengers have to figure out how they're going to survive the night, and the story takes off from there. So I know that that was a heavy and loaded synopsis given the circumstances surrounding the Titanic, but this is one of the most compelling and moving stories that I have ever read in my life, especially for this to be a YA novel. And even though the main plot centers around Valora and these characters trying to survive, like I said, there is a blossoming romance between her and another character. The little moments that we got between her and this character, especially towards the middle and the end of the story, were just so sweet and so charming. I will just say that this book destroyed me in the end. I understand why Stacey Lee ended it the way that she did, but it didn't make it any easier, and I definitely felt like this is one of those books that you can call bittersweet for sure. As you guys know, if you've been following my channel for a while, I'm a heavily character-driven reader, and this book definitely scratched that itch because you become so invested in all of the characters that Valora becomes close to throughout the story, and you just want the best for all of them, and you're rooting for all of them every step of the way. I still like the fact that there was a sense of community among them and that they really looked out for one another. But the little romance that we get between Valora and this other character, it was just sweet, and like I said, I just really like the fact that Valora had something else going on within the story. But this one right here, I still think about it to this day, and I definitely plan on rereading this at some point so that way I can annotate it. And the last book that I have here is The Hacienda by Isabel Canallas. I know you guys are probably looking at me like, girl, is that not a horror book? And yes, it is a horror book, but there is a romantic subplot in here that involves two characters who, in my opinion, are technically star-crossed, okay? Hear me out. I need y'all to see the vision, right? So this story follows our main character named Beatrice, and Beatrice is down on her luck because her father was recently murdered, and now her and her mother are displaced. They have nowhere to live. They do end up contacting this relative of theirs, and this relative allows them to stay with them, but Beatrice quickly realizes that this is not an ideal situation because this relative is just mean and awful and nasty to Beatrice and her mother. And so Beatrice is determined to get them out of this situation, and so she decides to find a suitable husband who is very wealthy, and she does just that. She finds a man who fits this, and they end up getting married right away. So because this man is really rich, he does have his own estate, and so Beatrice does have to move in with this man. She ends up moving into a place known as Hacienda San Isidro. But once Beatrice lays eyes on the actual house, she's not really impressed because it looks very decrepit and very spooky and old. But she does decide to put those feelings aside because she knows that she'll be able to renovate and essentially make this house her own. But before Beatrice can do any of that, she's attacked right off the bat by a vengeful spirit that is haunting Hacienda San Isidro. So because of this, Beatrice ends up seeking out help from the local priest named Andreas, and Andreas is not only a priest, he is also a witch. And so Beatrice and Andreas decide to team up to try to exorcise this house and really get to the root of why this house is even haunted in the first place. But there is a romantic subplot between Beatrice and Andreas, and to be honest, when I first read this book, I did not think that this was going to go in that direction, nor did I think that this was going to be a star-crossed lovers. I'm obviously not going to spoil anything or talk to you guys about the ending of this book, but I will just say that this definitely does fall into the star-crossed lovers trope. Beatrice and Andreas are from two completely different worlds. For those of you who have read this, you're probably looking at me like, girl, you're reaching for the stars. And I said that, didn't I? But I do feel like the romance between Andreas and Beatrice was compelling, and I wanted them to be together so badly. The next two books that I have here, I haven't read them yet. The first book that I wanted to show you is Out of Love by Hazel Hayes. This one definitely skews more to that definition of where there are two lovers who just can't be together for circumstances beyond their control. Not tragedy necessarily. At least I don't think so. That's not what I got from the synopsis. Out of Love begins at the end. As a young woman packs up her ex-boyfriend's belongings and prepares to see him one last time, she wonders when they fell out of love, where it all went wrong, and whether it was ever right to begin with. Burdened with a broken heart, she can't help but ask herself, is love really worth it? These are the questions we obsess over when a relationship ends, even when obsessing can do no good. But instead of moving forward through the emotional fallout of a breakup, Out of Love moves backward in time, weaving together an already unraveled tapestry, from tragic ending to magical first kiss. Each chapter jumps further into this couple's past, mining their history for the days and details that might help us understand love, how it happens, and why it sometimes falls apart. I just think that that sounds so beautiful and so intriguing, and I don't know why I haven't read this book yet, but this just reminded me that I need to bump this up on my TBR because, like I said, that synopsis sounds incredible. But I just think that this is such a unique concept for a story, especially for the star-crossed lovers trope, and so I just think that this is going to be such an interesting story. The next book that I have here is Finding Jupiter by Khalees Rowe. So of course I had to include this one again. So this story follows two characters named Orion and Ray, and Orion and Ray are described as broken people, but they do end up crossing paths one day and end up finding solace in one another. And Orion, who is the guy, ends up falling head over heels in love with Ray, the girl, pretty early on, and he is determined to get with Ray essentially. But Ray has something going on within her life that is preventing her from fully getting together with Orion and also just loving him fully and openly. And the story takes off from there. So I don't really know too much else about this book. I feel like the synopsis for this one is a bit vague. This is another book that I am really excited to get to at some point. I'm hoping to get to it in this month in March because I was supposed to read this in February and that just didn't happen, but I am really looking forward to reading this one. I feel like there's not that many books out here, at least not ones that I have seen, where two black characters are at the forefront of a star-crossed lovers situation. I just haven't really seen that too much, especially in a YA book. So like I said, really looking forward to diving into this one. All right, y'all, and those are all of the books that I have to share with you today. Like I said, I know some of them I might have been reaching a little bit, but they still have that romantic subplot, so I wanted to call them out. But I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me my channel out. And lastly, please make sure you follow me on Bookstagram as well as Storygraph. I will leave all of that information linked down below, as well as at the end of the video and at the beginning of the video, like I always do. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!